always give my phone.
Court is in session with Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan in Sacktown.
Oh, must be Ryno.
Happy Jerry Reynolds Wednesday. Did we schedule this perfectly or what? We get Jerry Reynolds in between the first and second rounds of the NBA draft. The Kings will be on the clock at 45. We'll talk about what they did last night. My thanks to the Kings for having me out last night. To all of you that showed up, good job. There was more people than I thought. You filled a few sections. It was very clear who the Kings fans wanted to draft. In fact, this was the sound when Mikel Brown Jr. was drafted by the Nets.
With the sixth pick in the 2026 NBA draft, the Brooklyn Nets select Mikel Brown Jr.
How about that? Very, very interesting. It's been a while in my memory that I think back to when Kings fans kind of had a consensus of who they wanted. Maybe it's the opposite of the Luka thing, which Vlade was on a show earlier, and he's like, I don't think I passed on Luka. I don't think anybody wants my advice. So good job with him with levity. So we'll get to all you. Jerry Reynolds will be here at 3:30. Plenty to break down with him. We had the chance last night to speak with Darius Akuff Jr. We also had the chance to speak with Scott Perry after the first round. Want to get your reaction. How do you feel? The Kings are being praised pretty much nationally for picking Darius Akuff Jr. I will say this right off the top. Scott Perry kept his word. He said that he was going to take the best available player. And at that spot, Darius Akuff was the best available player. Now, what we debated on this show, is he the best fit, though, for the Kings? The Kings are going to figure that out. They're going to really be looking at offense. There's no doubt about it, because defense is a little bit of a concern with Darius Akuff Jr. The Kings have been bad on defense, but Scott Perry also did something that I was talking about leading up to the draft, and I had heard that they wanted to get back into the late first round. I didn't know who it would be for. Matt George did a tremendous job of detailing who they were targeting, and we'll talk about it in a second. It ends up being Alex Caravan. The Kings trade the 34th pick to Cleveland and a future second round pick to move up and get the big man from UConn, two-time national champion. And here's the interesting thing to me. I wanted to see, and we've been talking about a Scott Perry player. We're trying to put together what Scott Perry wants when it comes to talent and tendencies. What are things that rank high on his board? And when I look back at his first two drafts so far, between last year and halfway through this one, 3 of the 4 players that Scott Perry has drafted have played 4 or more years in college. That includes Alex Caravan. Very interesting story about his workout here in Sacramento. James Ham was right on it. He asked a great question last night. We'll get Scott Perry's reaction to that as well. But here was the reaction last night when Darius Akuff Jr. was announced as the Kings pick.
With the 7th pick in the 2026 NBA draft, the Sacramento Kings select Darius Akuff.
Darius Akuff and the Kings tied together throughout this process. look, Darius answered some questions. He wasn't really sure where that came from, but he wanted to be in Sacramento. He wanted to be wherever he was going to be drafted. But for a player like Akuff, he is walking into a blank canvas. You know, he's not walking into a Clippers situation where you have Darius Garland next to you. He's not walking into a Utah situation with Keontae George there. He's walking into a place where he can really put, or at least has his chance to put his personal stamp on the franchise and have an opportunity, a true opportunity to be a franchise player. So we're excited to get Darius in town. We're looking to see what's going to happen with the 45th pick tonight. Where do you stand? I want to know where you're at, because it seems like 95% of the fan base is loving this pick. So where are you at? The consensus with everybody that I've talked to, this to me is pushing your chips a little bit more towards the center of the table, towards offense. It's saying, and maybe you can make the counter argument depending on what the Kings do in the offseason and what they do tonight. Maybe you can make the counter argument that you're going to fortify that front line. So if the perimeter defense is not great, you've got guys that can make up for it, like a Dylan Cardwell per se. I think the Kings will probably try to target somebody that's probably a forward that can play 3-4, maybe a rim runner, somebody that is athletic. If he can shoot the three, great. But that's probably what they're going to be looking at here in the second round with the 45th pick. But the consensus was that, yeah, this is the swing. You're going for the best available talent. Jay Billis, many others think that Darius Akuff has the ability to be a star in this league. I'm not saying he's going to be a star. Jay Billis is saying, and many others, that he has the ability to be a star. And there's little doubt this is who Sacramento had circled. If he was there, they were going to take him. It's pretty much been my message, although I held strong that I think Kingston Fleming's might take you in a different direction, a slower direction, but maybe a little more stable direction. And that's kind of what the debate was between the people in the media, and we're talking about the available players. So we'll talk to Jerry about that in a little bit. Darius did do some media availability with us on Zoom shortly after he was drafted. I had the opportunity to ask him a question about his facilitation, because everybody talks about his scoring, but his facilitation, and also uh, looking forward to playing with the young bigs with Max and Dylan. Darius had already said that he's looking forward most to playing with Domantas Sabonis. Here was his answer. Everybody talks about your scoring and three-level abilities, but what about your facilitation and your leadership at the point playing with young bigs like Max Ryno and Dylan Cardwell?
It means a lot. Like I said, I'm excited to play with those guys. They're great players. I feel like I can make those guys better. They can make me better. And like I said, I'm looking forward to the opportunity. I think my skill set brings a lot, and my leadership.
Great. Thank you so much,
So
Darius.
that
And thank
was
you guys.
Darius last night during the post-draft availability. Very, if I had to summarize my first reactions on Darius, very intense, very focused, to the point, brevity, actions before words. Scott Perry said, and we'll get into some of his comments, that when Darius walks into a gym, he believes he's the best player on the floor. We had played some audio when he was on Draymond Green's podcast talking about matchups and not wanting to have whoever is guarding him get more than him, etc. And that bleeds out in his play. You can see that on the film. How's that going to translate to the other side of the basketball and to the NBA? Because it is a little bit of a different game. But as I said, Scott Perry, I've got to give him a lot of credit. How can you not? The Kings did not have a first round pick last year. He gets back into the first round. Then you get Max Ryno at 42, who ends up being a second team All NBA player, would likely be a top 10 pick if that draft was redrafted. And you're seeing some consistencies with what he's looking at. Now, there is a lot more consistencies to the offensive side of the basketball, especially in the drafting of Akuff. But I do like that 3 of the 4 players he's drafted so far have 4 or more years in college. He's looking for players that are coming from winning traditions. Darius Akuff now is the 8th player drafted by the Kings from the University of Arkansas. There is a possibility there could be a 9th drafted tonight, which we can talk about later as well. But Scott, I can't complain about what he's doing. I can't. Now, would I prefer, based off of the not the rhetoric, but the pitch to the fan base about building this block by block? Darius Akuff feels a little bit more like a block. You are betting that he's going to be that guy that translates, that is going to be explosive. Now, on the flip side of things, the big question besides defense for Darius Akuff is, what is his facilitation skills going to look like? Is he going to be able to distribute the basketball effectively? Also, if he's that guy offensively and teams target in on him and start taking the ball away from him, what's going to be the secondary option for the Kings when it comes to facilitation, assuming that Domantas Sabonis might not be here in Sacramento? So Scott had a lot of praise for Darius last night. We're going to play some clips from his press conference before Jerry gets here at 3:30. I asked Scott because he made it pretty clear that they were very familiar with Darius's game, but I was curious if there was an aspect or an area of Darius's game that really stood out to them more, that was kind of discovered in this draft process. Here's what Scott had to say. And how that might help the team going forward.
I don't know if it was undiscovered, but his ability, people talk about size, but he's very strong. So his ability to play through contact was impressive. Not that we didn't think he could do that, but I think he does that at an even better level maybe than what I anticipated. He is more explosive and he's faster than what people think too from time to time. But he knows when to pick and choose his spots and how to use his speed. So he's been trained very well at the point guard position. Again, will he have a lot to learn when he comes to the NBA? Of course, because everybody's faster, everybody's stronger than from the level he just came from. And but the beauty about him, he's trying to figure it out. He knows he's just at the early stages of his journey, and he has a lot of big goals ahead of him that he wants to accomplish, not only for himself as an individual, but team success. Winning is very important to him. And watching what he did with that Arkansas team this year and winning the SEC tournament and going to the Sweet 16 says a lot for 18, 19-year-old young man in arguably the toughest league in college basketball this year.
So I appreciated Scott's response there. I thought it was fairly candid, and he brought up a decent point when it comes to Darius Akuff. If he does have that ability to change speeds and use his body, which by all accounts was more NBA ready than some of the other prospects that were available at number 7 at point guard, then that's a huge asset. And that's going to be a learning curve when he comes into the NBA, as Scott put out there. I do like the mindset of, nobody's going to be better than me on the floor. I like that from top down, if that translates as well. But, body positioning, being able to use your size and not just draw the foul, but be able to still finish the basket. Too many players just are focused on the foul and not actually making the shot. And that's a very valuable skill. Is that something that he's going to be able to do? we'll see. We're going to start seeing it in the California Classic. We'll see it in Summer League, and that'll be a small taste because he's not going to be playing against true NBA caliber talent across the board. It's going to be a lot of G Leaguers, guys that won't even be in the G League. And how the Kings handle Darius this summer will also be interesting. As we said, the Kings did get back into the draft at number 30, which I thought was, or 29 or 30, excuse me. I thought it was great that they were able to get back and get a guy that they wanted in Alex Caravan. We're going to talk about him in a second. But the other thing looming when it comes to Darius Akuff, it's the other side of the coin. It's defense. Scott was asked about that last night. Here's what he had to say.
He is a tremendous competitor, and I watched what he did with that Arkansas team this year. I was fortunate enough to actually watch him a couple of years ago out of USA Basketball when I was not working in the league and I was working at ESPN, and I spoke to a young group that had all the top prospects out there. And just the way he went about his business then at even a younger age, back down for no one, has a lot of skills. He's a player that can score at all three levels. He can get to the basket. He can score in the mid-range. He can obviously shoot the three-point shot very effectively. And he can get teammates involved. He's a very good passer. And so that's what you look for in a point guard. So he exhibited all those skills, so we're very comfortable in showing that. The defensive part, look, I'm a former college coach for 13 years. And when you have a high usage guy like that on offense, you know, sometimes he's not going to always be the best guys, but he's more than capable of defending. When you get a young man like this who's highly competitive, who wants to be successful, he will figure out how to defend well enough at this level. So I'm pretty confident in that. Most of the guys that are getting drafted at the top of the draft all have to get better defensively. You know, you got to learn this league. So that's something that I'm very comfortable and confident that he will be able to do.
So that was Scott on Darius Akuff's defense. Now, Akuff was not the only guy that we've been talking about here in Sacramento. I was very high on Kingston Flemings. I still am very high on Kingston Flemings. I think he lands in a perfect situation with a young Atlanta team and a very similar role that he's going to get to play next to CJ McCollum for a year that Steph Castle did with Chris Paul. Now, Chris Paul, a better player than CJ McCollum, but you get my drift. Flemings, really a true facilitator, really exhibits all of those things that jumps off the tape that Doug Christie talked about wanting in a point guard. Now, I'm not saying that Darius Akuff does not have those things, but it really hopped off the screen. And so Scott was asked last night about evaluating the other players and their strengths versus Darius Akuff's strengths, which is obviously shooting the basketball. And this is where he says that was the separator, which I find extremely interesting.
I think all these point guards in the draft offer a little something different that allow themselves to be very good NBA players. I think he combined more the traits in terms of his ability to shoot the basketball is a separator for him at that position, number one. But his ability to pass, he can pass it as well as most of the guys in this draft. And so his ability to read defenses is very good. So there were a lot of traits to like, and it has nothing to do with the other guys, because there were, again, a lot of these guys in this draft we really like, very fond of, and think they're going to be excellent professional players in this draft. So, but I think his combination of being able to shoot the basketball and score from all three levels, something that I believe our team needs, was a big separator for him.
So you're going to have a lead guard, and it doesn't mean a lead guard does not exhibit point guard skills as well. But to me, Darius Akuff is definitely a score first guard. You saw how that worked out with Russell Westbrook this season, and it's really the way that the NBA is trending right now. Antonio Daniels has said, and I believe him, I think he's spot freaking on, that the NBA is lacking true point guards at the moment. So this is not a crazy move. This is not a big swerve away from the par drafting a player like this, but it's also not something different. It's something that you could argue we have seen before in Sacramento with combo guards and lead guards. You've seen that movie. Now, could Akuff be different? Absolutely. And by all accounts, if you read the stats, if you look or you read what the experts have to say, you look at the stats, you look at what he did at Arkansas, as Scott Perry mentioned, the potential is there for that to happen. But if it is not, then you are still lacking that one thing, which is that true point guard, which maybe you can pick up in the offseason when free agency starts. Maybe you can pick that up via trade. We'll see. But we've not seen that film. We've not read that book of the Kings operating with a guy that is that true facilitator, that is going to be looking to get everybody else as involved as themselves. Now, Darius might be that player. This is a different level. It's the NBA. He was the best player on that Arkansas team. He might be that player when he gets to the NBA, but scoring is his strong suit. Shooting is his strong suit. Per Scott Perry, that was what really jumped off the page to him with Darius Akuff, and he leads with that. He goes first with that. So what's that mean for the Kings? Is this going to be a team that has to outscore other teams? And granted, this is not a team that is even ready to take the next step, but can you find a way to balance things out where you do have a defensive presence as well? And to be fair to Darius Akuff, maybe he is able to step up and play some defense in the NBA. It's very simply could be an effort thing, as he's talked about in interviews. I need to put more effort into the defensive side of the ball, but that's one of those things, and I don't buy into it. I know a lot of other people buy into it, that if you're playing hard on defense, you can't play hard on offense. That's not something I buy into. I think defense is really, it starts here. It starts with your heart. You want to have to do it. So we'll see what Darius Akuff does in Sacramento. We also talked about Alex Caravan, 4-year player at the University of Connecticut. I know my man C-Dog is super happy about this. He won back-to-back national championships there, 2026 national runner-up, UConn's all-time leader in wins as a starter, games played, games started, minutes, and three-pointers made at 292. The story about Caravan, who came in for a workout with the Kings, James Ham laid out last night in a question to Scott Perry. When Alex Caravan was here and they were doing the group workout, some of the other guys were struggling to make shots. Alex had made his, and he was over there encouraging the other players. And so Scott's talking about the pillars, looking for guys that have that winning gene, that also, and Alex can stretch the floor. I'll give him that. He's 6'7". He's got a 6'11" wingspan. The Kings need three-point shooting. Defense, not necessarily a strong suit, but at the same time, he is a threat from beyond the arc. And too many times, the Kings have not had that 3-level attack. And so what will sometimes open things up, if Darius Akuff can be a 3-level player, that opens up everything else for the rest of the Kings on the floor. So James asked Scott Perry how important that was, what that he saw in that workout, both on the field from Alex Caravan and also what are on the field, on the court, and then also what he saw with the encouragement, the leadership. Here's what Scott had to say.
Absolutely. You hear a lot about that, and you heard a lot about his story during his years at UConn, and obviously you could see the winning in the basketball from afar. But just that snapshot of the workout and getting a chance to interview him and have a bite to eat with him, you learn more about the person, and that's real genuine. And culture is everything to me. I don't think you can build a sustainable winner without a defined standard and a culture that everybody lives every single day. And it's, that's part of who he is. That's who he was at UConn. That's what he wants to bring to the professional team he plays for. So we're fortunate enough to have him here, help being one of those guys, those kind of foundational guys to help establish the culture that we want. And that's being highly supportive of one another, highly competitive, and ultimately build that sustainable winner.
Obviously, rookies have it.
Absolutely.
So that was Scott Perry last night on Alex Caravan. The Kings still have right now the 45th pick. They will be drafting at 34, but they are drafting for the Cleveland Cavaliers because of the trade that occurred last night. So again, I give Scott Perry a lot of credit for sticking to his principles. And when I say principles, I'm not talking about the pillars that the Kings say. These are, whatever the 6 are. I don't know them off the top of my head. I'm not giving him credit for sticking to those. I'm giving him credit for sticking to the plan that he's laid out to us, the fan base, the media. Yes, Akuff is a little bit of a bigger swing. To me, he's more than a brick. He's almost like the first layer of a foundation. But you're starting to see the consistency. Like I said, he's drafted three of his 4 draft picks have played 4 or more years in college, many of them coming from winning programs. Will that also carry over to tonight's draft at 45? Will we see a similar pick? I think Scott, and we won't know about this draft for a couple of years, but I do think that Scott has done a really good job handling these drafts so far. You can't argue it on paper. You just can't. Now, where does that come in if you want to have the bigger discussion about Vivek Ranadive and autonomy? Is Scott operating with it? I think Scott really is operating with a degree of autonomy, at least with the draft and the scouting and the running the basketball personnel side of things. And just as important as what happens tonight and what happened last night is going to be what happens when the draft ends tonight and the Kings start looking to fill out their summer league roster, looking for players that are undrafted. It's been a strong suit for the Kings in the past 3 years. They have drafted they've signed 3 different players to unsigned free agent contracts, and they end up getting full-time roster spots. But really what it comes down to on that side of the things, or on that side of things, is the 3 things, the 3 principles here in the Kings court when it comes to the unsigned free agents: identify, develop, and then retain. Retaining has not always been easy. Scott, to his credit, has retained Dylan Cardwell. So Wednesdays, it's a loaded Wednesday with all the draft talk, but you know who we have on Wednesdays, and there is nobody else better to it. I know we have calls waiting. So Renus, Ralph, maybe call back. So I want to get Jerry in here. No better person to talk to on a draft day than Jerry Reynolds. What's up, Jer? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really good. Obviously, I'm looking forward to the second round just because it's something to watch. I don't know, have any strong feelings anyway. But it's a really kind of a neat time again to be a Kings fan. Hope springs eternal. And so, it's a good day.
Jerry, Scott Perry said before the draft that they were going to take the best available player, and I think they did. What's your breakdown of that?
Well, I think they did. I thought he did obviously you can't take Akuff if he's not there.
Right.
But I think they got a potential star. I really do. I felt that way for quite a while back. I think I saw him in late December in a conference or a holiday tournament or something. But amazing talent offensively for sure. Defensively, obviously some questions. There's no doubt. But I've said many times the reason that Jalen Brunson dropped in the draft and Steph Curry dropped in the draft and Steve Nash dropped in the draft was because the people said they couldn't play defense well enough. And last time I checked, they've done pretty well. Had pretty good careers. So I would, that's why I say I'm old enough to remember all that draft talk through the years and all that. And yeah, but Akuff is, I think, the most gifted guard, certainly, in this draft. I honestly, other than DeBonsa, I'm not sure there's a player that has a more star quality to him.
Jerry, is judging a player when you're going through the process of scouting and saying, well, defense is not his strong suit, is it too much of a blanket statement, or is there really that big of a gap between guys that you see on film that can't play defense and those that are deemed to be, okay, a good defensive player?
Well, I mean, certainly you want guys that are really outstanding on defense, just like you want guys that are outstanding on offense.
Yeah.
I think what with in many cases, it's a question: do they have the ability to play reasonable defense or outstanding defense? And in many cases, and a lot of key players in college, really coaches don't really demand that because they can't afford to have them off the floor. I would say that was certainly the thing with Steve Nash or Steph Curry during their college days. They just simply had to stay on the floor. They couldn't get in foul trouble. Their teams, and so that affected how they played defense. And I think Akuff's the same. And then plus Coach Cal is never focused on defense. I mean, it's just the opposite of Kingston Fleming's with Kelvin Sampson, who always focuses on defense. So, it's like just kind of the reverse world, where if you can't play offense at a pretty high level, you won't play for Cal. And if you don't play defense at a high level, you won't play for Kelvin Sampson. So,
yeah,
they're both right. Their history and success proves it.
So as we sit today, do you have to say that the Kings game plan is going to be scoring more points than their opponents?
Well, day one, I would say so. I mean, I think offensively they got better. I think they definitely got better, day one and for the future because of this draft. Now, what does that say? Does that make them a lot better team? Well, it obviously, if you score more than you did, that makes you a better team. But they're defensively, there's still the questions. Akuff, for all the criticism, he doesn't really make them any worse defensively than they were, whether they were a bad defensive team, and they still are. Now, it'll be up to Coach Christie and his staff to try to get these guys better. Now, part of it will happen just you'd assume with Hunter and Keegan Murray getting healthy, both well above average defenders, if not strong defenders. So that in itself should help the team. And then I think obviously really nipping, basically taking the bull by the horns and really getting Akuff to focus. I always said any player that's a good offensive player has the skill to beat and get by people offensively and do all those things. They have the ability to play defense. It's basically a matter of focus and moving your body and sticking your nose in there. And I think anybody that's ever played sports knows and that you don't have to be a stopper, but you have to make an effort. I always think of another guy, Allen Iverson, who in college, just kind of made, kind of half-assed defensive efforts. And at the time he got in the pros, he was probably close to average, close to average. His athleticism was so spectacular that, that he could create problems, in passing lanes and things just with his reactions and learning what he was supposed to be looking for. So, defense can be taught. Doesn't mean guys will learn. It's like math can be taught. Doesn't mean everybody's going to learn
it. So true. Jerry, you called many of this guy's games. John Salmons, thanks for the super chat. They call it a scoreboard. not
Yes,
a
they do.
defense board. Yeah, they do. Indeed. Jerry, do you subscribe to that mindset? And I said before you came on, I echoed your sentiments about defense really kind of coming from the heart. It's an effort thing. Do you subscribe to the thinking that you can't be really that true two-way player? It takes away from your offensive game if you're putting that much effort in on the defensive side of the ball?
I would say, yeah, I think it does to a degree. It doesn't have to do much because there's some great two-way players. But I mean, let's say Jaylen Brown comes to mind,
Yeah.
great two-way player. If in fact if he wasn't expected to score or lead the team in any way on the offense, could he be better defensively? Yeah, I think so. If that was his fault, take a guy Lou Dort. Well, his focus is defense. Now, not that he can't make a shot down there, and he does, but his is defense, and certainly if in fact he was expected to score 20 a game, I think that would probably hurt his defense a little. And that's why in football they have guys who are defensive specialists and offensive specialists.
Yeah, very true.
It's a different mindset.
Yeah, can you imagine if you had guys that only played offense in the NBA and then only guys that played defense? And you had to sub out every possession. Oh man,
Yeah,
that would
lap hands they went by, and have
hockey subs.
Yeah. So, but that's right, and that's kind of why that's basketball. You play a great player has to play both sides. He can't just be a quarterback or a wide receiver. He's got to guard somebody, and the greats find a way. Where I always say, Magic and Bird weren't great individual defenders at all.
Mm-hmm.
They became great team defenders because of their intelligence, and whereas LeBron early on and Michael Jordan were absolutely great individual defenders. They're not, near the end of the career. LeBron isn't the same now, but he's still average.
I mean, if he needs to get up and get something off the glass, he will. If it's an important game, he'll still get there.
He picks the spots now.
Exactly right.
I mean, and Michael near the end of his career was the same way. I'd always say in this fourth quarter, I mean, he'd just blot out guys where they couldn't even catch the ball. But until then, he'd give some shots.
No doubt. Jerry Reynolds with us here on the King's Court. If you have a question for Jerry, throw it in the chat. We will get to them. Jerry, Scott Perry inherited a financial mess coming in as general manager, and we can't give him, we can't appraise this draft yet. We won't know for a couple of years. But on paper, you are starting to see some consistencies. 3 of his 4 draft picks have played 4 more years in college. You have also seen him get back into the second round or first round last night, get into the first round last year when you didn't have a first round pick. I've got to say, Scott Perry on paper is doing a pretty damn good job with the drafting and the reading and scouting of the unsigned free agents.
Oh, I really think so too. I couldn't agree more. I think he's been really good there. Obviously picking up Ryno in the second round last year, Cardwell as a undrafted player, clearly belongs in the league. Picked up Precious Achua, as a free agent, kind of out there, and the team. I think he is, basically gotten better. And then of course this draft. We don't know yet, where Caravan or Akuff, how good they'll be, but I think, there would be no so-called expert that wouldn't think that they did pretty darn well. And I think they did more than darn well. They did outstanding.
High praise there from Jerry Reynolds. Let's talk about Caravan for a second. How much do you like his game and how does it fit in with the Kings?
Probably not as enthused as I wish I was.
Okay.
I think, his resume in college was outstanding, great success on a great team. I see him as kind of a fill-in spot shooter guy. He can shoot the ball. He's a little bit small for a small forward. That's who he'll probably have to guard. Uh, I guess what I'm trying to say is he offhand, I wouldn't have thought he'd be the kind of guy you would trade up to get. That, that I would have thought he'd probably be the kind of guy that if you didn't take him where they did, he might be available at 45, really.
Yeah, they obviously thought he was not going to be there at 34.
Yeah, and that's the point. And the point, even if they said, well, he might be there, but we like him enough. And that's where the scouting comes in. And I would certainly give them the benefit of the doubt. I was giving you kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah,
which is not nearly as educated or have prepared like they have. And so, just my eye test is, well, he's a guy that probably there middle of the second round, but he's a draftable player. But to their credit, and this is again, people like us will judge it later on. much like Monty McNair and them took Vesnikov a couple of years ago. Well,
Vesnikov, yes.
And it clearly was a mistake. So, at the time it looked like, that's a good pickup, European star, and it didn't work.
No, it did not. What direction would you be looking at 45 tonight?
Well, I just think it's best player available, and in a matter of can you find somebody that can make your roster? Certainly, you can always they could use more size, and especially in the wings. I think you can't have too many good wings that can shoot.
Sure.
And so and with the size they do have, and really with the obviously you still don't know. With Levine and Domas, what the plans are there, what's going to happen, Monk. But I would think you'd say if we can find wings with size that could defend and shoot, that's what we'd be looking for more than anything.
No doubt about it. Kingston Flemings ends up in Atlanta, and I think Atlanta is going to be a little bit of a dark horse. They started sneaking up this year. They're young, they're athletic, they're better than they know, and he's going to get to play a year with CJ McCollum. How important is that going to be towards the growth of his game in that team?
Well, it should make it really seamless, more so for a rookie to come into a team, with a terrific veteran like McCollum who still plays at a high level. Mm-hmm. And then more importantly, for Kingston, he gets to join a team with quite honestly, a very proven coach and a major star in Jalen Johnson.
That's right.
In other words, so his workload is going to be very different. He's got a chance just to fit in and, help a winning team win. As opposed to Akuff, which is he really is going to be expected to come in and be the guy, and which is asking a lot. But same way with Devonta, in Washington. I mean, it's asking a lot, but that's what you have to do if you're not very good is find somebody that is better. But Kingston Fleming, terrific player, but he's in a perfect spot for him, I think.
Jerry, you were with the team when the Kings drafted DeMarcus Cousins, and he was going to be the guy. And the way that he came in and that was handled wasn't necessarily the best. And I guess my question is, how are the locker room dynamics when it comes to a team that's in flux? You've got some quote unquote young vets like a Keegan Murray that we're still waiting to see, but you have this rookie coming into the locker room that you are expecting to be the man. How does that mesh together?
Well, it can mesh very well. It depends on the rookie. Is he good? Certainly Cousins was. Can he be coached and fit in with his teammates? Cousins really couldn't. And there's no reason to assume otherwise with Akuff. It may prove to be a very difficult transition. But it's extremely important. I mean, I think with DeMarcus, he's a Hall of Fame talent. but it wasn't just in Sacramento that a lot of issues popped up. They popped up every team he went to.
Every team.
You know, he was on about 5 or 6 teams after the Kings, and it was always the same. And, you know, it's a shame because the guy was, like I say, probably more gifted than Weber. But, you know, his career ended like it did for a reason.
Yes, it did. Okay, the rest of the draft, and then we'll move on from the draft. We'll talk some broader Kings things and NBA. Anything from the draft? Any other teams that you really loved what they did? I mean, it was pretty much chalk at the top, but who were your other standouts?
Yeah, as you said, I mean, I thought the early part of the draft went just like you thought and made sense every step of the way.
Dang it. We hit our maximum questions with Jerry already? I thought we negotiated that last week after it happened. You kidding me? Hold, are we going to have to go to Vintage, Jerry? See if we can get him back. But in the meantime, what do we have that we can play from Jerry? Let's see.
It wouldn't be any of those, Tristan. I mean, I was just hopeful you would ask me a question. That's one of the highlights of the week for
me. There you go. Getting some love from Jerry, Tristan. Jerry, anything else to say?
Tristan, pay attention. Pay attention.
Yeah, come on, Tristan. Tristan again.
Come on.
You know, I paid Jerry.
Yeah,
I negotiated with your agent the last time I hit the maximum amount of questions. I thought this wasn't going to be an issue again.
You know what happens is every time somebody calls me, this is my son, for some reason it shuts off the feed. I don't understand why, but that's what happened.
Because your son's more important than talking to me.
No, well, no, I didn't pick up. I'll get back to him, but it's one of those things of. The first time it happened, I didn't know what happened. Now I understand. I don't know why it does happen, but at least I know when it happens. I know what to do about it. I just go back and sign in again. So I don't really know what we were talking about when the draft and how it went, and some surprises and things. And yeah, I did want to say, you know, I think this draft is going to be one of the best of all time. I do. Like I say, I don't see. And I'll stay with it. I don't see that franchise guy, that Jabbar, that LeBron, that Jordan, that Magic. I don't see that guy in this draft. I see guys, several, I think, who could be many-time All-Stars, and the depth of the draft. I think there are going to be guys late first who might make All-Star type things. So the depth is amazing. One of the best I've ever seen. So I just want to clear that up. Now, couple things that struck me, and I think see what the fans think. But San Antonio and Oklahoma City,
yes,
they're in a kind of draft war ahead of time. But you know, it was clear. You know, I think we've talked about it. You could tell what San Antonio needed.
Yep.
And they went out and got it. They got more muscle and size to protect Wemby. And Oklahoma City, they wanted more size to combat Wemby.
Yep.
Obviously, Mara is that. And so, I think it's pretty, well, that's why they're such good franchises. I mean, they were in a position to, I think, fill their needs. And now time will tell if they did, but it certainly looks like they did. And I'll tell you the other one. I hate to say this, but I think the Lakers really came out.
Yeah.
The Carr's
a great. I think he's going to be tremendous.
I do too. I think, you know, he's a guy that, you know, 3 years from now, people will look back and say, well, he should have been taken top 5 somewhere or 10, you know, and I mean, he's a kind of a late developer, but he's got Vince Carter type athleticism, just that explosiveness.
Yes.
And he shoots the ball deep like Vince could. I mean, now Vince was obviously a high lottery pick, but yeah, I think this guy, just his athleticism jumps off the charts.
I think he will be one of the 10 all rookies this season. He's going to have, to me, a VJ Edgecombe kind of impact if he's able to get some usage. next to Austin Reeves and Luka, and who knows with LeBron. But it is funny about Mara because we talked about the Holmgren issue, and it's not just the sample size of the Western Conference Finals. It's looking at the sample size of the entire season, and it was 9 of 14. And, Holmgren doesn't show up. So if you're OKC, you're keeping all three of those guys, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think so. I think they need all three. It's 18 fouls. And I think with, especially with Mara, I mean, he's not going to be ready, immediately. I think he can help. But, you look down the road as he gets bigger, he's going to be Zach Edey type big when he's another year or so. And he doesn't have Zach's offensive ability, but he's probably a little better defensively. And with the length he has, a standing reach of 9'9". So that's he they've got the scoring, so they don't really need much from him there. And it probably helps Holmgren more than anybody else, because then Chet now can be a stretch four.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, I sat in a press conference with Kenny Atkinson this last season. It was right before the Kings and the Cavs. It was going to be the first game Harden was playing with the Cavs. It was Keon Ellis's return. And Kenny Atkinson talked about meeting your players halfway, embracing their strengths, and making sure that you maximize that for your output. You're not hard-lined. This is what we're going to do. And Doug Christie last year, I think if you want to line up a few of the bigger mistakes, it was deciding, even though these aren't the right guys to do it, we're going to play 94 feet, which brings up this question from Renus, which I think is a great question. Should Doug still press for defense and try to get Akuff average defensive rating, or should we hope to see them change/adjust their game plan? Okay, we'll eliminate the press conference, but does Doug need to change his approach and re-look at the pieces that he has to play with now?
But yeah, I think he has to, because there's different pieces.
Yeah.
And we, just like you're talking about Coach Atkinson, I've always said there's only two things a coach can do once you have your roster, is motivate them as best you can and utilize them as best you can. And so now you got a different talent base, some different talent available to you than you had. And so you got to find out what they do best. And, the idea that you have a system and pound guys into it, it just doesn't work. It might have been in junior high school and it might have been high school, but it does not work at the higher levels. You've got to let your stars be stars. Now, to the point of defense, sure, he should encourage defense.
Have to.
I like I say, I think the thing that bothered me is for the last 4 or 5 years, we've heard defense, but we've not really seen any demands or penalties for not playing it.
Unless your name's Keon Ellis.
Yeah, that's a good point. And there are exceptions. Yeah, if you play it, we might bench you. But so that, I think that certainly defense should be stressed, but it's basically guys held accountable for it, just like you'd hold an offensive player accountable for taking a lot of bad shots. So I think until that happens, but the exact same style of play, I'm with you. I thought they tried to play faster than their talent. It's like, yeah, you'd like to play like the Knicks or San Antonio, but you're not as good.
Right. And if that's, into your point about having a little bit of bite behind your bark, if that's what you're going to do, you have to play the guys that do it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, at least to the point to where the team is producing as well as it can. I mean, everybody, if you put your best 5 defensive players out there, let's say you do, well, you might play better, pretty good defense and score 80 points and lose every game. Yep. Because as one of your previous people pointed out, which I've always said, that's a scoreboard up there. It's not a defensive board. Defense helps you win.
Oh, that's why they put that thing up there.
The most
Okay.
points, always wins. The better your defense is means you don't have to score as many.
We saw that in the playoffs. There was
Yes, we
a
did.
premium on getting a point. It meant
that's a
something.
great point. That's where it showed up as much as anything. Points were hard to get because both teams were good defensively. But if you didn't have some basket getters, especially Brunson and OG Anunoby for the Knicks, they would have no shot.
I was waiting for a player to stop the game and ask for the game ball because they scored a point in the finals. It was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous at times, and and the officials had a lot to do with it because he got so physical.
Yeah,
I thought, I didn't have a dog in the fight per se, but I did think, that Castle in particular got by with just beating up Brunson there for a good bit. But then Brunson's such a tough buckaroo. He found a way to come out on top when it all ended.
It's so funny with Castle because I don't think of many players when you look at what their off-season goals should be, where it's like you need to reel something back. And Jerry gets he goes over that line a little too much and almost always in the wrong times.
Yeah, he's such an aggressive player, and you love that. But then he's so young, and you hope that he'll pick his spots better, I guess is the way you'd put it. And obviously, offensively, he can improve. I think his biggest weakness is just his ball handling.
Yeah.
For a point guard, if he's going to be that, I'm not sure that he is. I think, as opposed to, say, Harper or Fox are both much better handles, but his assist to turnover ratio just is not good enough. And so he's young enough that his handle can be improved, but you don't see a lot of creative passing either. And that's one thing about Akuff watching. I mean, he is really creative.
He's creative. Yes, he is.
And his assist to turnover ratio 3-1, the one, so there's that. So anyway.
Yeah, Castle was kind of behind the 8 ball when he had 19 turnovers in the first 2 games of the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, he was a threat for a quadruple double there.
So we're sitting here. We ended the show last week talking about me wanting to share my couple spots where I thought Giannis would be. But before that, I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's just reset it. All the teams in front of you in a map. Which team, if you could say Giannis is going here because he is the best fit for this team, who would it be?
I think Miami.
Okay.
I think it, with he and Adebayo could fit pretty well. And they've got some young guys they can move that they wouldn't miss too much. Like I think Hero and Jamie Jaquez and
see, I think they'd miss. You put the damn deal together, Jerry.
Yeah, whereas it is one of those things. Sometimes you can, look around and read the tea leaves, so to speak. I think that it made sense. And once Pat Riley and the Heat organization, they don't tolerate being so for very long.
Yeah.
They're in the contending business.
Yes,
and so I knew they would go strong, and I kind of understand it from Milwaukee's standpoint. I mean, Jaylen Brown was you're getting the best player by doing that, but the Bucks, once they lose Antetokounmpo, they're saying we just want to redo this thing.
Exactly.
And Miami give them the best chance to do that.
Exactly.
And, I mean, my question about the whole thing was when Boston was trying to make the trade their way. I don't know why you wouldn't try to trade Tatum and something before Brown. Brown's a better player.
Really? That's interesting because
he's a two-way guy. And just remember, he was the MVP of the championship, in finals.
Yeah.
And he's a strong candidate MVP this year and they had the best record or second best record in the East without Tatum, basically.
That's very
Yeah,
interesting. That's a hot take.
I know a lot of people see it different, but to me, Tatum's terrific. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a top 15, 20 player in the NBA, but I think Brown is one of the top 10 because of his ability to control the game with the ball, defend it, and score it.
Let's turn to the Minnesota Timberwolves. This CBA and now the new lottery rules have really accelerated teams in terms of how big of a sample size they are willing to allow before they move on and make another move and change things up. They basically moved back in the draft to dump Julius Randle's salary, Jerry.
Yeah, it's it almost reminds me of the old Kings days, cash considerations.
Yes.
I always said, cash considerations hadn't got a rebound or scored a point in years.
Jerry, what are cash considerations? Like, how does that ultimately play out?
Well, they made a promise of something. They just that's all that is. It's like, yeah, we're moving this guy and we get the second round pick or something and cash considerations. Well, the considerations might be $4.50, or it might be $500,000. That's what you really don't know for a long time. Eventually, I think you can find it out. But I always say my years with the Monarchs, so we would do that, and sometimes because it's a whole different world, I'd trade somebody for cash considerations. It was give me a Diet Coke next time in town.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's one of those things. But I mean, I think with Randle, he didn't have a very good playoff, but he's still a very good player and was important to him during the regular season. So it does appear like they're a little bit like Portland. They're doing everything they can not to spend money. They lost.
Jerry, don't even start me on Portland.
Yeah, that's really an embarrassment. But Minnesota let Walker go last year as a free agent to Atlanta, and who's a most improved player, and they really didn't replace him.
Yeah, this
year now. So anyway, yeah, I don't understand it.
What do you think about Micah Norrie's 1-year contract to be the coach of the Blazers that includes a sliding scale based off of incentives and team success? The team has a second and third year option. Jerry, the players have never determined a coach's destiny more than in Portland.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's embarrassing for the Coaches Association, and the league really almost needs to step in.
Yes.
I knowing Micah, he was with the Kings for a period of years, and really a sharp coach, young coach. And I think I kind of understand from his point, I've been there, to where he wanted to be a head coach, and he had been in the running about 7 or 8 times over the years, and certainly didn't get it, and was willing to say, I've been assistant for 20 years, and this might be my only chance. And so he, just willing to take whatever they would give him. And it's a shame that that's the way they treated it. I mean, they took advantage of him due to his, his ability, and he's betting on himself.
Yeah, he'd do it for free. It's the opportunity.
Yeah, there's only so many jobs, and certainly, as we know, with assistants, and there's so many on the staff now, so it's hard for anybody to get any real traction. I look at a guy like Chris Gent, who was also assistant with the Kings for a number of years with Mike Malone, and he was number one guy for Coach Brown. And he's been bouncing around teams, and the guy the guy would be a good head coach, but so far he hadn't had his opportunity. So yeah, it's a black mark for the Coach Association, Portland in particular, and
Yeah.
the league maybe too, to a degree. Uh, Certainly don't blame Micah. I mean, he's betting on himself, and I hope they do so well, except for against the Kings, that at some point he he doesn't sign a new deal at some point and go somewhere else and says, "Stick it, fellas."
I mean, if I am a member of the Portland fan base, I am livid. I went through a rebuild, which was done pretty well. My head coach gets
Mhm.
arrested on federal gambling charges. Tiago Splitter steps in, does a tremendous job. Players love him. They lead you to the playoffs to where you lose your draft pick because of it. And now it's okay because the future's bright. And Dundon comes in and just rips the guts out of really, to me, the locker room by not signing Splitter. But is it, you said somebody needs to step up. Is it Adam Silver? Is it the other owners? Like, how does this get handled? Like, dude, this can't continue.
Yeah, I think I think this is a case where the owners should also be involved, but now they can be involved through Silvers, because he works for them.
Good point.
And so, yeah, this is not good for the league. It's not good for the league as well as coaches. So, yeah, just a bad sign. It's almost like what the Oakland A's owner for years. A little bit of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. You see it in hockey all the time where they just hire a guy and fire him mid-year and the whole thing. But it's a bad look for the league, a bad look for Portland for sure.
No doubt about it. If I am a Blazers fan, I don't know how I feel about supporting my team right now and putting money into the pockets of that owner. All right, two other Kings, DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis. Reports are the Kings are planning to waive DeMar DeRozan, stretch his. Let me take a step back. DeMar DeRozan's contract is right in the ballpark of $25 million. However, only 10 of it's guaranteed. So the Kings are looking to waive him and stretch that over 3 years, which equates to about $3.3 million against the cap. I think it's a good move, Jerry. I don't like that the Kings are losing DeMar, but DeMar is playing at a very high level. I think he has more than deserved to turn into no longer a prisoner, but a volunteer for another team somewhere else where he can contribute.
Couldn't agree more. And by doing it this way and DeMar agreeing to it, I mean, where the stretch thing now, he could feel comfortable taking a veteran minimum spot somewhere.
Yeah.
If it's available. I mean, and certainly financially still be in pretty good shape. Obviously, he's good shape financially anyway, but just his services would be, a little more taken care of. But you're right, he's a pro's pro, and whatever problems any of us had with him, it wasn't. He played to the best of his ability.
Yeah.
Every night, and I really wish him well. He's just one of those guys that will be a Hall of Famer, deserves to be, and probably at the end of his career deserves to maybe have one more shot on a contender.
So well said. I agree with all of that. DeMar's been also great off the court, advocating for mental health awareness, meeting with different groups with his foundation. So just all around great person, great player. Wish him nothing but the best. As for Domantas Sabonis, Scott Perry last night declined to comment on any of the rumors that the Kings may have been re-engaging in talks to trade him. I should say me, not you, thought that he would be traded at the draft. Jerry, how hamstrung are the Kings going into free agency with both his contract and Zach LaVine's contract on the books?
Well, they got nothing to work with really, other than the exceptions. So, in other words, any free agent that that they would probably want to pursue, significance, they can't. So I always say that's a lot of times I think as fans some get confused on that a little bit. It's like you can go over the cap and spend money for your own free agents.
That's right.
And
Austin Reeves today. Austin
yeah,
Reeves today.
yeah. I mean, I see this all the time on the King's Herald a little bit. Is that people say, well, the owner's just being cheap. Well, no, he's not in this case. I mean, in other words, you can't go 30 million over the cap to sign somebody else's free agent. You have to have the rules are you have to be under the cap that amount in order to absorb that contract. Uh, as simple as that, or the sign and trade kind of thing, where you trade somebody with an equal contract and all that. So yeah, but if you want to go into the luxury tax, you can, but it's going to be with your own free agent. You can't go into the luxury tax with somebody else's.
Very true. Spot on. And with Domas, so Summer League coming up, obviously it's for the Rooks to get some run, but it's also an informal convention of the NBA front offices. If Domantas Sabonis was to be traded, when do you think the cutoff date would be for him to be in a deal somewhere?
Yeah, I think it'd be by the end of Summer League.
Okay.
Because really during August is just dead time. So it's not likely. I'm not saying that the trades do happen in September and for camp, but I'd say a lot of activity during summer leagues in Vegas because everybody's there, and it's easy to kind of run into people and talk about things. So I would say, yeah, if he's not traded by the end of summer league, I think he'll be on the roster at least till trade deadline of next year.
Yeah, and Darius Akuff said that Sabonis is the player he's looking the most forward to playing with. Domantas has done nothing to work his way out of Sacramento.
No.
I just don't think Scott Perry sees that type of role for his style of center at that number.
Well, yeah, I think it's, as you get different new coaches, new GMs, they see the roster different. And they want to, if they can, kind of redo it. Plus, they're obviously very high on Maxime Ryno, as they should be. Cardwell looks like he can be a legitimate backup. Now, here again, we don't really know these things for sure. Because they had pretty good rookies here on a losing team, that doesn't necessarily mean that equates to the same kind of success on a winning team. But we'll know more next year. But I'm just hedging that, and whether either one will ever be the level of Domas, that's a real stretch. But I'm not saying it's not possible, and certainly in Reyno's case. But anyway, yeah, it's one of those things where I think with Scott and probably Doug Christie, they probably like to play, maybe a little more conventional game with the center, where Domas is unique. He's basically like Jokic, except can't score near as well.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. I mean, he rebounds as well. He assists as well, or close, and he gets his points different. But he simply doesn't have that, and no big man in the last 20 years has what Jokic could do. So but I mean, he needs to be on a team to where he's going to be kind of a point center. Really, that's where he's at his best, like we saw with the Beam team.
Well, and that to me is where Darius Akuff can be very appealing, because you could have that quasi combination again where you've got Akuff that is the 3-level threat and Domas that can facilitate from outside the circle. And that works. It just worked for New York. And that's where I would expect, if Domas is on this roster during his exit interviews, he reminded us that he's an all NBA player a couple of times. I would expect a Domas that has something to prove. And now it's going to be up to Doug Christie, because even though he was injured, Jerry, Doug Christie did not use Domas properly last season.
Yeah, it wasn't a good year for Domas, the way the season started or way it ended, for that matter. So, but I would assume, Doug, from the Beam team, you would have some idea what Doug or what Domas's strengths are. I do say this: if they were to move Domas, I think Ryno can do a lot of the same. I think he's a little bit like Catcher. He's probably a good high post ball mover. He's a good passer. His 3-point shooting has got a chance. But it's a work in progress.
Right.
So you would just be, if you didn't have Domas, you'd be speeding up the process to find out if he is your guy.
Speaking of the back end, Cardwell, Ryno, the forwards, that's where the defensive strengths are for this team. Is it possible to play a defensive scheme where your wings, they're going to get beat once in a while, but that back end is fortified so much that it balances out?
Yeah, you got, with Hunter and Keegan Murray, those are two well above average defenders. At least they have been through their career. So that could be a strength which hadn't existed here for a long time. Mm-hmm. And certainly Cardwell has potential to be pretty well above average defender, and he already is, I think. Ryno, not so much, but that doesn't mean he can't be. To me, he's a little bit like Akuff. There's potential. There's no reason he can't be significantly better in time. And, certainly Devin Carter can play defense at a pretty good level. Nick Clifford certainly can. There's guys that are above average on this team, several. Does that mean your overall team defense will be of average? It doesn't, but it could. That's kind of how it works. The glory years of the Kings, Mike Bibby was well below average defensively.
Right.
And Vlade was probably slightly below average defensively. So, but as it turned out, Weber was above average, well above when he wanted to be. And Peja was really underrated.
Yeah.
Christie was terrific. And Bobby Jackson was really good. And so by kind of utilizing strengths, weaknesses, trying to cover for certain guys, they played defense well enough to outscore everybody.
Yeah, they did. And, don't count out, I know a lot of fans don't like it, the zone defense. I think there are ways that the Kings, they played zone decently, just straight up, and they've thrown a couple of nuanced zones out there. I think there's some more ways to nuance that to where, Jerry, it's not so much that your zone is that good, it's just you're switching up your coverages so consistently.
Yeah, I agree. I really think their teams are missing a beat, not playing more. We're seeing more zone than we used to see, but I think it could be used a lot more. And to your point, certainly after just about every made basket or made free throw, you almost really, I think, should sprint back into a zone, and you could even change your zones up. Just have little keys, made free throws are going into 1-3-1, on made baskets is 2-1-2.
Right.
Well, with a 24-second clock, that really can get sticky, for teams. It's like, whoa, what are we doing here? Well, time you figure it out, maybe you got 5 seconds on the clock. And certainly it's a tempo change. If nothing else, it's a tempo change from just playing man-to-man and watching them score on you.
100%. I think the two keys for this team, because they're not going to win a championship, they're probably not going to be in the play-in, but if I had to circle the two keys besides player development and playing the young guys, it's what you just talked about. It's being creative on defense, being active, but it's also the 3-point shot, Jerry. The Kings didn't just not make them. They didn't take nearly as many last season. I think that needs to be, and maybe that's lack of being able to get by players, lack of getting into the paint. That has got to improve this season for this team.
Yeah, it does. And you raised a great point here. We don't know exactly why. I do think that they didn't shoot as many, in big part because they couldn't really get them. They didn't have the consistent penetration or the spacing they needed. And then secondarily, it's pretty inconsistent shooting to go with it. I mean, I think it's a team that needs better shooting. Certainly, Akuff you'd think would improve that. Caravan as well, outstanding 3-point shooters too, for sure. And so, but this team doesn't. You don't have to shoot 50. And I think we know from watching championship teams now in the last few years, you don't have to shoot 50. In fact, you shouldn't. But you have to utilize the 3-point shot. And I think for the Kings, the main thing would be try to get more of them, but more better ones.
Spot on. Spot on. Okay, last question before we try to get you out the door, because I do want to ask you about a couple other sports.
Mm-hmm.
Can you have Russell Westbrook on this roster now that you drafted Darius Akuff Jr.?
I don't think you should. I mean, I think it's a case, and it's certainly nothing against Russell, but I think that was one of those things that years ago when they brought George Hill in to mentor Fox as a rookie, and I just felt it was a mistake. That it kind of slowed Fox's development really by a year, and I would just soon see him give the keys to Akuff day one. I mean I always remember, Chris Paul, when he came in the league, his team. And you can go back to the Kings, Jason Williams.
His team. Great point.
His team. And Rick, I remember Rick saying that. He said, well, he may not be totally ready, but we're going to get him ready. And that's kind of what happened. So that'd be my inclination. You want somebody that can play behind him, but I think it'd almost be better to have a younger guy that's trying to prove himself too.
100%. I've talked to some people that are inside the building, and it feels like they understand that really the olive branch here to the fan base that they're grabbing onto is we're going to see the young guys play. We're going to commit to that, and we'll let the chips fall where they may. But you take that away and you start playing vets heavy minutes and sitting the young guys, there's going to be a very short patience for that this next season.
Yeah, I understand that completely. This fan base, very knowledgeable fan base, and they certainly are aware this team is not going to contend for a championship anytime soon. But what they would like to see is, okay, do we have several guys that could play on a contender, and we want to find out if we've got 3 or 4 guys that could be here 6, 7 years and eventually add talent to it. And to me, that's what this year is about. Who belongs going forward.
Bingo. Well said. Did you have a great Father's Day?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, my kids or wife, nobody beat me up or anything. So that was encouraging.
Hey, that's just a good day in general.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Yeah. They said they liked me. I don't know. You don't know how much is totally true, as any parent knows.
Yeah, you're hesitant to bring the lie detector into the house. I get it.
Yeah, I just appreciate the effort, whatever.
All right, have you been watching the World Cup?
No,
really? Okay. So no soccer for you.
I will to some degree, but I was into U.S. Open golf last week. That
was my next question. Yeah.
And then the LPGA has a major this week, so golf's got to come first, and some WNBA. I've started watching WNBA a little more too, and looking forward to summer league basketball as well. But so I put all those ahead of soccer. I'm sorry, it's just. I don't think there was a human being that ever played soccer in Southern Indiana when I was growing up. So
what were the sport options? It would probably golf, basketball.
Football? Well, it's basketball number one. That was religion. Football, baseball.
Okay.
But yeah, of course, I'm so old. It was so different then. I always tell people what they had in Indiana at that time. Even football, they play 9 games and then have a mythical state champion. They wouldn't even say, get it over with so we can start basketball. and of course, track and field and all those. But and at that time, no female sports at all.
Interesting.
Yeah, they could, and I think like quite a few states, it came in the middle early 70s, I think, when it finally started, and now it's more like it should be, to where you have football, track, women's basketball, volleyball, softball, and all that. And by speaking of softball, I see where they're starting a professional women's softball league.
Oh, are they?
I've always said I think it'll work. I really enjoy watching women's softball. I mean, it's really, there's a lot of action, and they're terrific athletes. So yeah, I think it may be time. I don't know that we need any more sports, but I think it's showing that a lot of popularity at the college level, to where they draw big crowds.
I do not know how women's softball pitchers, how they still have arms. When
Yeah,
the way that they wind up, and then even as a batter, it feels like the pitcher is right there on top of you.
well, yeah. I mean, they always say like a 75-mile-an-hour pitch in softball is equivalent to 100-mile-an-hour baseball because of the closeness.
Yeah.
It just gets on you. But I'm with you. You watch those girls or men, and they're playing underhands. I mean, and the whip they've got. But the reality is they have far fewer injuries than men overhand pitchers.
Interesting.
Yeah, they always say. I mean, that was done some years ago with men. They say, well, yeah, the torque is it's different. For some reason, I don't know. But all I know is in Major League Baseball, if you haven't had Tommy John surgery, you just haven't pitched very long.
Yeah, you shouldn't be in you shouldn't be in the majors yet. You still belong in the minors.
By the way, I played high school basketball against Tommy John. That tells you.
No, you didn't.
Yes,
really?
I did. Yeah, he was a 6'3" guard from Terre Haute, Gershmeyer, Terre Haute, Indiana, and Gershmeyer High School, pretty big high school, and he's 6'3". He could have been a Division I player. He was good, but he, obviously, basically made the right choice in sports. But I played against a pretty fair quarterback named Bob Greasy too.
Oh my gosh!
Who chose to. And he was he was a starter at Purdue in basketball.
Yeah.
Quit after his sophomore year because, football was made, and people were mad at him, like, how can you quit? In Indiana, it's like, why would you're a starter at Purdue?
What are you thinking? Yeah.
What are you thinking? Just to play football?
Football.
Football.
What are we talking about? Football?
So anyway, that's my little goofy stories from.
That's insane that you played against Tommy John. Did you get over on Tommy John?
I was a sophomore and he was a senior. We got beat in a close game. I was the leading scorer though, and
it's hard to stop. Hard to stop a Caucasian comment.
Well, he didn't stop me, but I sure didn't stop him either. So he was better than I was then. That's for sure.
Oh my gosh. I learned something new every single time that we do this on a Wednesday, Jerry.
Well, Ryan, one thing you keep in mind is when you're 82, you have a lot of experiences and memories, but just by nature of the journey.
And hopefully the bad ones have gone away too.
Well, they haven't, but you push them aside.
There you go. Hey, Jer, appreciate you. Can't wait to talk next week. We'll have the California Classic. We'll know who the Kings will have at 45, and we'll continue our summer trek, my friend.
Can't wait.
Appreciate you so much. Have a great rest of the day, buddy.
Take care. See you.
All right. The one, the only, Jerry Reynolds. Lucky to have him here. As I say, every time we finish a Jerry Reynolds Wednesday. Interesting stuff there. Tatum over Brown. Okay. Jerry very high on Darius Akuff Jr. In that group that thinks he has the highest ceiling. And as I said a couple of days ago, the Kings were, and I said it today, going to take best available player. They did. And we'll see how that all shakes out. I know nothing's going to be happening today with the Kings, but come later this week, they're going to probably get whoever they pick tonight, they'll get them into town. And I would expect probably a press conference before the end of the week to introduce Darius. Last night, Coach Christie was in the building, talked to the fan base for a tiny bit, and Nate Clifford was also there as well. Checking out your comments before we adjourn. Don't forget, Grant will be on tonight at 7 o'clock if you want to join him for Open Forum. He's traveling right now. He is over in Thailand. So check him out from there. He's been wearing a different jersey every show this week. Every single one. So he can have a different jersey on tonight. Y'all know my rules about adults wearing jerseys in public. It's okay in your house, but in public, I don't know. So, what did you find most interesting from our conversation? Excuse me. Yes, thank you. He would take Brown over Tatum. I misspoke. Good job by you, Lau. He thought that Brown would be the one to hold on to. Renus, Caravan is like Tatum without the defense. Stop it, Renus. I respect you, Renus, but Renus. No. Caravan is like Tatum. Can we just talk about athleticism before we even get to skills? Renus. Come on. I'm going to let you off the hook, Renus.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
Can you believe Jerry played against Tommy John? It's incredible. That's pretty darn cool. Like literally, Tommy John. Insane. So, second round, how tall is Caravan? He is 6'7", with shoes on 6'6" and 3/4 without shoes. Do not ask me why I know that. Don't, because I am a basketball sicko. So don't ask me. 45th pick tonight for the Kings. Draft gets back underway here in just under 30 minutes. I look for them to go with a forward, maybe a rim runner, couple of names that come to mind. I know they like the kid out of Duke that's a sophomore. He will not be there. I think he might be one of the first names you hear tonight. What's his name? No, it's not him. I know the dude's height, but now, who was it? Oh, Isaiah Evans. I think he's going to go fairly early tonight, based off who the Kings have had in for workouts. I wouldn't be surprised if you see another Arkansas Razorback in Trayvon Brazil come off the board for the Kings, and maybe Isaiah Nelson. I like Isaiah Nelson a little bit more from South Florida, and he also is a 4-year player. So looking forward to see what the Kings do, and then certainly what they do after the draft ends. How are they going to fill out the summer league roster? A lot of the guys that they had in for workouts that were going to be late first or second round, or maybe even not drafted prospects. That's the pool that they will turn to. That's the pool that Dylan Cardwell came out of. That's the pool that Keon Ellis, Isaac Jones, all those guys came out of. Shout out to my guy Mason Jones too. He is working his tail off. I hope he gets an opportunity somewhere here in Summer League. He deserves it. Did some great stuff in Australia, China, won Stockton a championship in the G League. So Mace, if this gets back to you, brother, I hope you land somewhere here in the next week or so. I've not talked to him in about a month. He said he would come on. Maybe we can get Mace on. Amazing. Our Jerry played against Tom. It's crazy, right? Tommy John was a great pitcher. Yes, he was. Let's see. He played against a name on a surgery. You know, my favorite thing about today, and Jerry said it before, but it just cracks me up when he goes, yeah, how many rebounds and assists has Cash Considerations ever gotten? And I'm thinking, like, okay, are we ever going to see somebody who's truly named Cash Considerations? It might be possible. If you have Clinton Dix, then Cash Considerations is not out of the realm of possibilities. But if not, a Cash Considerations jersey would be hilarious. That would be really funny. So glad everybody was able to join us today. Again, Scott Perry have to. Renus come. Okay, Renus wants to clarify. Ryno, to clarify, Caravan is nothing like Tatum because is without defense, without the mid range, and without the rim pressure. Just the 3-point shooting. Okay. All right. Fair enough, Renus. So every other player, because it seems like everybody has the 3-point shooting in their bag. Seriously, what are we going to see first? Are we really going to see a person named Cash Considerations? Or are we going to see a Cash Considerations jersey? I would be interested to know that. Somebody track that for me because I will not remember. Just to kind of summarize and adjourn court, credit to Scott Perry. Got to give it to him. And if you're looking at what he's done objectively and taking into account this draft class on paper, because we can't judge them yet, very strong stuff. And more importantly, I think we're starting to catch on to Scott's vision for what he wants a Sacramento King to look like athletically, skill set. He took the best player available, although there still is that argument. I'm going to remain firm in my point. I think Kingston Fleming's might have been the better fit than Darius Akuff. I might be completely wrong, but Darius Akuff is the better talent, and Scott went best available. Based off of everybody I spoke to last night, that is where they were going. They were hoping he was going to fall. They were fairly confident. They did not move up, and that's exactly where Darius Akuff ended up. If you notice, that card came in very quickly, and the reaction from the Golden One Center last night was hilarious. I played the Mikael Brown Jr. reaction, but this is when Darius Akuff was drafted.
With the 6th pick in the 2026 NBA draft.
Oh, we don't have it. Never mind. Anyways, it was a loud reaction. And yes, the fans aren't always right, but I can't remember, at least for the last few drafts, where the fans seem to have a consensus on who they wanted as number one. This year, the consensus was definitely Darius Akuff. So we see what Scott Perry and the Kings will do tonight at 45. I've given you a couple names where I think they might look. Could any moves happen tonight? Maybe a small one here or there if you want to hop back into the second round. But other than that, Jerry's spot on about Domantas Sabonis. Probably summer league, end of summer league is going to be the cutoff for any type of trade. But we'll wait for the Kings to introduce Darius Akuff and Alex Caravan and whoever else they end up drafting tonight at 45, assuming they keep the pick. We will be live. Well, we won't be live. I will be on site when they introduce them. So look for that. Grant, 7 o'clock tonight. I appreciate all of you turning out for the King's Court today. Don't forget the audio version. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find the King's Court. We are doing a best of for every day, so you don't have to go through the full 2 hours. Jerry Reynolds Wednesdays are a little bit different because start to finish, it's a really good show. That audio will be up in just a little bit. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. I would really appreciate it. Grant would appreciate it. And follow him, follow me, and join him tonight, if you don't mind. 7 o'clock, he'll be back on the channel doing an open forum show. So enjoy the second round of the NBA draft if you're going to be paying attention. And I appreciate everybody, especially the one, the only, Jerry Reynolds, who played basketball, excuse me, against Tommy John. Yes, that Tommy John. All right, we're at the finish line.
Let's go, Ryno.
We're home. Court dismissed.